Picture this, you're standing by a fire 30,000 years ago, and across the flames, someone catches your eye. Not a swipe right, not a profile picture, just firelight. And a look that says exactly what you think it says. There's no dating app. There's no "it's complicated" status update. There's no ghosting by text, because there is no text. And yet, humans have been doing this exact dance since long before we had a word for it. Here's the strange part. When scientists actually go digging literally for evidence of what sex and romance looked like in the deep past, the picture that comes back is messier, weirder, and honestly funnier than you'd expect. Stick with me here. By the end of this video, you will never think about date night the same way again. Let's set the stage. For most of human history, we're talking the vast majority of the roughly 300,000 years our species has existed. There was no marriage license, no dowry paperwork, no in-laws sending awkward holiday cards. What there was a small band of maybe 25 to 50 people who all knew each other's business intimately, because privacy the way we know it, a locked bedroom door, simply did not exist. So how did people actually pair up? This is where it gets interesting because researchers do not agree, and the disagreement itself is kind of wild. Let's talk about the pair bonding camp first. Anthropologist Owen Lovejoy put forward a famous theory back in 1981. He argued that walking upright, the single most defining human trait, evolved partly because of monogamy. His idea, males who paired off with one female and provisioned her with food, freeing her to invest more in fewer, higher-quality offspring, outcompeted males who spent all their energy fighting rivals. Walking on two legs frees your hands to carry food home to your partner. Suddenly, bipedalism isn't just about efficient walking, it's about grocery runs for your mate. Think about that for a second. A more recent study out of University College London, led by researcher Kit Opie, mapped the evolutionary family tree of primates and found monogamy tends to show up specifically in species where infanticide by rival males is a serious risk. Pair up with a partner and protect the baby together, or lose it to a jealous rival. Grim, but it tracks. Now let's pause and address the skeptic in the room, because not everyone buys the idea that prehistoric humans were basically monogamous. Author Christopher Ryan and psychiatrist Casilda Jatha made the opposite case in their well-known and controversial book, Sex at Dawn. Their argument, early human societies may have been far more sexually open, sharing partners the way they shared food and childcare, with paternity treated as an open question. The whole band helped raise the child regardless. Part of their evidence leans on modern hunter-gatherer groups where multiple men are believed, biologically speaking, to have contributed to a single pregnancy, a concept researchers call partible paternity. Is this universally true of the deep past? We can't know for certain. A belief system doesn't fossilize the way a bone does, but the fact that multiple human societies today still practice something like it tells you monogamy was never the only option evolution left on the table. Here's where the physical evidence gets genuinely moving. In 1933, archaeologists working near Bethlehem uncovered a small carved stone figurine in a cave called Ain Sakhri, dated to roughly 11,000 years ago. It shows two figures embracing, so tightly intertwined that it takes a second to realize you're looking at two separate people rather than one shape. It now sits in the British Museum, and it is widely considered the oldest known depiction of two humans in an embrace. Not a hunting scene, not a god, two people holding each other. Whatever else prehistoric humans didn't have, plumbing, dentists, Wi-Fi, they had this. Speaking of physical evidence, let's talk about Sungir, a roughly 34,000-year-old burial site in Russia. Archaeologists there found a double grave containing two young people, laid head-to-head, absolutely covered in thousands of hand-carved ivory beads, the kind of ornamentation that would have taken months, maybe years of collective labor to produce. Whoever these two were to each other, brother and sister, betrothed, something else entirely. We genuinely don't know for certain. But the sheer effort poured into how they were buried tells you something simple and important. Bonds between specific people, the kind worth marking permanently, existed a very long time before anyone wrote a word down. Let's lighten the mood for a second, because prehistoric flirting was probably not all that different from a rough night out today. Ochre pigment, body paint, and shell jewelry show up at sites tens of thousands of years old. And researchers studying decorated ostrich eggshell beads at sites across Africa believe personal ornamentation doubled as a signal, a way of saying, look at me, I have resources, I have skill, choose me. Animal hide loincloth or not, showing off is showing off. Some things never go out of style. Then there are the so-called Venus figurines, small carved statuettes of women with exaggerated hips, stomachs, and breasts, found scattered across Ice Age Europe, the most famous being the Venus of Willendorf. For decades, people assumed these were simple fertility idols, carved by men for men. More recent interpretations suggest something more personal, possibly self-portraits, carved by women looking down at their own bodies from above. The proportions distorted the exact way your own body looks when you glance down at it rather than in a mirror. A body capable of surviving pregnancy and childbirth through an Ice Age winter without a hospital down the hall was worth carving, not hiding. Now here's a detail that sounds like science fiction, but isn't. Your ancestors weren't only pairing up with other humans. Geneticist Svante Pääbo, who won a Nobel Prize in 2022 for this exact work, sequenced ancient DNA and proved that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals interbred repeatedly tens of thousands of years ago. Most people alive today whose ancestry traces outside Africa carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA because of it. Somewhere in the deep past, a human and a Neanderthal looked at each other across a very different kind of fire, and it worked out well enough to leave a mark on your genome that is still there right now, reading this sentence. And speaking of consequences, nobody puts in the romantic montage. Sexually transmitted infections have apparently been along for the ride the entire time. Genetic studies tracking the herpes simplex virus suggest it has been jumping between hominin populations for hundreds of thousands of years, which means your ancestors were dealing with some version of the exact same awkward conversation you'd rather not have today. Let that sink in. Some things really do not change, no matter how many millennia go by. I want to be careful here, because it is tempting to romanticize all of this. Cavemen and cavewomen, supposedly pure and free of modern hang-ups. That is not quite right either. Anthropologists studying groups like the Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer populations on Earth, extensively studied by researcher Frank Marlowe, find real jealousy, real breakups, and real social drama over who is with whom. Prehistoric romance was not some idyllic free love utopia. It was human, which means it was complicated, occasionally heartbreaking, and constantly gossiped about around the fire, the exact same fire that lit up the whole thing in the first place. So let's circle back to where we started. The look across the flames. 30,000 years ago. No apps, no algorithms, no carefully curated bio. Just one person reading another person's face for a signal that has apparently worked well enough to keep our entire species going for a few 100,000 years, through ice ages, through famines, through the extinction of an entire other species of human we apparently could not stop falling for. Next time your matches feel impossibly complicated, or the whole dating scene feels exhausting, remember this. The actual hardware you are running on was built around a campfire for a world of 25 people, not 25 million profiles. No wonder it feels like a lot. Your ancestors never had to swipe. They just had to catch someone's eye across the fire and hope it kept burning a little longer.